So let's talk a little bit about Rachel.
Yeah, let's just skip her.
Okay, let's go on to Uncle You.
Okay, Rachel Mary. Well, I always wanted a girl. Was very happy with the boys I got. But when she was born, I saw her little face. She looked just like her brothers. And I said to the doctor, he said, "Lauren, you have a girl." And I said, "No, I saw his face. It's another boy." And he said, no, it's a girl. And he put her little bottom up there. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you sure there's not going to be a little penis pop out of there in a couple of weeks?" Well, that got to be the joke of the hospital, because all the nurses later came in my room and said, "Aren't you the lady who wanted to know about the little penis popping out?" So anyway, I was very happy. What are your memories of Rachel? Birth.
Of her birth, Rachel was the first baby of ours who I got to hold first. So after she was born and they cleaned her up, they brought her over to me first. All the others they gave to Mom first. So I thought that was pretty neat. Rachel had no hair. Didn't get hair till she was
Almost
of any
two.
significance till she was what?
2.
2. And we always teased her about that. And she had a little birthmark that I'll let her explain to you where it's at and what we call it. But we had a lot of fun with her little birthmark when she was growing up. But she had to deal with 3 older brothers. So as a consequence, she became a pretty tough little cookie.
But she was always sweet.
But we had this playpen. We just playpens anymore. We can't figure it out. We figured playpen's about the only thing that kept her alive for the first couple of years, because Mom could put her in a playpen and the boys couldn't get after her. So it was different having a girl in the family. There wasn't as many sporting events to deal with. But instead of that, we had piano lessons, and the like.
Recitals.
Recitals, yeah. So Rachel was a good student too, like the others were, and she was, but she wanted to impress everybody, so she always wanted to do everything just right. But the one thing we noticed about her is she couldn't stand, how do I put this? She couldn't
Right.
stand to hear about something at the last minute. Something that she had to do, she wanted to know about it. So you couldn't go to her. We made the mistake a couple times of telling her at 9 o'clock at night as you're going to bed, okay, the next morning, Mom was going to be taking them to the dentist. And she would be frantic because she didn't know that they had this dentist appointment coming up. And then as the more she talked about it, we learned, well, she hadn't really brushed her teeth for a couple days. And if she had known this, she'd been brushing her teeth more. But she would be absolutely panicked when she found things out at the 11th hour, so to speak. She couldn't stand that. But she did fine in grade school, and then went to St. Ursula, and then sophomore year or freshman year
For what?
for singing.
Freshman year.
Freshman year, she told us she wanted to go out for their singing group, and so we said that was fine. So we had a recording of a group called the Four Bitchin' Babes, and she picked one of the songs out. Do you remember which one it was?
fun to be perfect.
Yeah, it's fun to be perfect. And so she learned that song, and she had to go to school and audition. So she was a nervous wreck, but she got in this singing group, and I believe she had a lot of fun, and I know we had a lot of fun going to their events and so on. But Rachel would never sing at home. She would only sing at school. At least she never sang at home when we were there. And it wasn't until her senior year, we know she was in the singing group and going with them all the time. But her senior year, one of her girlfriends wanted to know if we were going to go to the soccer game. Why would we want to go to a St. Ursula's soccer game? We said, well, because Rachel sings the national anthem before the soccer game. We said, what? They said, yeah, she sings the national anthem. I said, well, you don't have a band, do you, that comes out and plays? No, they put a recording on and she sings with it. So I told Lauren I had to go to this game and hear her sing. So she didn't know it, and I went to the game that night or the next night or whatever it was. And I'm sitting there, and they introduced the teams, and then they said, okay, we're going to have the national anthem, and I think they said who was going to sing it. And they started up some recording on the PA system of the national anthem, and there she sang the national anthem. And I thought, by God, she can sing. And I came home that night, and I told Lauren, I said, our daughter can sing. None of us really knew, neither of us really knew that. So I guess that was really the first time we really began to get wind of her unique talent for singing. And then when she wanted to go to Dayton, she wanted to continue her singing, and on from there.
Rachel was a worrywart. She worried about everything. She had everything she had to be perfect to meet her own expectations. Now, the first 3 years of grade school, the night before school started, were crisis times because she'd be hysterical crying because she knew she couldn't do the work. We, of course, knew she could. But it was terrible. It took an hour of sitting with her while she cried and trying to reason with her. But Rachel has developed, I don't know how developed it was then, a way of, if she has a fear about something, she's sure something bad is going to happen. And any solution to it or alternative to it, she doesn't accept from you. So we began to call that the yes but game. Yes, but. So, but it wasn't a game, and she really suffered with it. And the first few recitals she did in grade school, we'd be there, she'd be all dressed and ready to go, and she'd be throwing up in the bathroom. She really blossomed at St. Ursula. And it was a wonderful experience for her. Small enough classes that everybody knew her and she could be herself and be good. I used to call her my angel. And she's still my angel. She'll be 30 next month.
Your old angel.
Yeah, my old angel.
So, as she got older, she continued in her singing career. And what other things do you remember most about her growing up outside of the singing?
Well, a couple stories from high school. One, she got her driver's license, had her driver's license for a couple of 3 days. She wanted to know if she could take the car,
Go to a soccer game.
pick up some friends and go somewhere. And I said, that's fine. So she left, and about 45 minutes later, she called, and she was in tears.
Oh.
And I said, for God's sakes, what are you crying about? Were you in an accident or something? She says, no. She says, but a police officer pulled me over. I said, why? I was going too fast. Okay, tell me more about it. Well, however fast she was going, I said, well, did he give you a ticket? She said, no. I said, well, what are you crying for then? I couldn't figure out why somebody would call home and rat themselves out that a police officer stopped them. So that was her first night driving. Then there was a time, second night, the second incident with driving, she wanted to go to a soccer game.
Out in Anderson.
Is that where it was? They were playing out in Anderson? And I told her that was fine, but it was a school night, so I said, you got to come home right from the soccer game. So later on in the evening, the phone rang, and I answered the phone, and it was Rachel. And she said, well, the game's gone into overtime. Is it okay if I stay out later? And I said, well, if the game's in overtime, yeah, you can stay for the end of the game. But then you got to come home. But I happened to notice that, I don't know when it was, but not long before that, we had call waiting, caller ID service installed on our phone. And I looked at the phone, and the name that showed up on the phone was Kevin Shepard, who happened to be the guy I worked for at the city. So I hung up. I told Mother what had happened, and I said, I'm going to call back and talk to her. So I called
His house.
this Kevin Shepard back, and Kevin answered, and I said, Kevin, it's Ralph Reneker. And, oh, all right, we chatted for a minute, and I said, would you get my daughter Rachel on the phone? Yeah, sure. So he called for Rachel and said, Rachel, your dad's on the phone. And she's sitting there thinking, how in the heck do they know I'm out here? So she got on the phone. Yes. I said, come on home. I don't recall that I got much of an argument from her either. So she came home, and she's like, how did you know I was over there? So we told her that, well, it just looked on a telephone, and it said that's where you were.
That's the first time we ever knew that she lied to us.
God, busted.
She did it a lot more.
That was busted big time.
And then the time with the bus.
Oh. Was she still in high school then?
Yeah.
We had a vacation from hell as far as the car goes. Our car broke down, so I sold our car on vacation. And we all got back. And that Monday back at work, I don't know how I got to work, but I needed somebody to come pick me up. So Rachel was going to come pick me up. So I gave her directions on, I had to return this rent-a-car because Peter and I came home in a rent-a-car. So I returned this rent-a-car to this Hertz or Avis place downtown. And I told her where to go to pick me up. So I'm standing on this corner downtown, waiting and waiting and waiting. And all of a sudden, some car pulled up, and this lady rolled down her window, and she said, are you waiting for your daughter? I thought, this is odd. I've never seen this one before. But I said, well, yeah, I am. And she said, she's up the street. She hit a bus. I said, oh, my God. She said, oh, no. She says, nobody's hurt. She said it wasn't, it was just kind of a fender bender. And, she was just a block and a half or something up the street. She went to ride me up there. I said, no, I would just walk up. So I walked up the street, and I found her standing alongside this bus in the car. I don't remember what the damage was. But our car was banged up, and I said, "What happened?" Well, apparently the directions I gave her were not exact, so she was kind of turned around downtown trying to find us, and she was in some lane, and she turned too fast around the corner and cut off this bus. But she told me she didn't see it. It was in her blind spot in her rear view mirror. How in the hell can you not see a bus in a blind spot? Unfortunately, that's kind of hung with her the rest of her life. But well, that's the way it was.
Tell a story about the time she went sled riding up at UD.
Oh my gosh. It was nothing but ice outside. She was like a sophomore and at UD. And I mean, the roads were treacherous. We get a call from Tom, her good friend Tom, to tell us that the ambulance is taking Rachel to the hospital. She was in an accident and she hit a fence sliding down this long road, or this big hill. So it was a long ordeal, and poor Tom, he was doing all the running around. So Dad got on the road in all that ice and drove to the Dayton hospital to make sure she was okay. Tom told her not to go down that hill. He did it first, and he said, "Don't do it, it's not fun. Don't do it." Well, she was going to do it anyway. So down she came, and when she hit the fence, she hit it with such force that her foot went underneath it. And so it was pinned by the weight of this whole fence. So the paramedics came, and they wouldn't call the paramedics till she showed her student ID. She didn't have it on her. Tom had to go all the way to her room and get her student ID. He brings it back down this treacherous hill, and then they called the paramedics. The paramedics had a heck of a time getting to her. They had to cut the section of the fence.
They put her on a stretcher and they pulled her up the hill.
Well, that
with
was
ropes, right?
Yeah. And after they got her out from under the fence, they had to pull. They put her in like a sled type thing that they have, and they had to pull her up that hill. And Rachel said the firemen were falling all over on the ice. Oh my gosh. So I've got a picture of her and Tom at that fence.